How you doing? My name is Cass Obregon. I'm a customer engineer for Google. I've actually been working for Google for 9 years. And today we're going to cover how to use Agent Space directly within for corporate employees within a legal environment, whether that be in retailing, manufacturing, finance, or specifically legal context for legal agencies as well. In today's webinar, we're going to cover through the anthology and history of how Agent Space was created and how it's being used today to deal with governance issues, contract reviews, and quite a few other scenarios. And then we'll go into a very simple scenario that walks through how to execute through several contract reviews. Go ahead, next slide. So what we're seeing today within the contract reviewing process, obviously, as we're all aware, it's a very tedious process. There's a lot of steps and reviews that need to be done. One of the things that we're seeing in today's market, with Agent Space being out of the market for going more than 6 months, is how that is simplifying paralegals or anyone that has to deal with legal reviews and contract reviews, et cetera, and how to be able to simplify that process. So one of the key things that we've seen within this industry is where data is completely segmented out and siloed, where a lot of employees have to swivel chair across multiple systems to extract and search and research and manually try to aggregate all that information and come up with a summarization in terms of aspects of what they're looking for, legal issues, or items that you're trying to address as part of writing up new contracts. One of the key things, obviously, that we're seeing in the market is a proliferation of agents to be able to accomplish that. One of the problems that are associated with that is, of course, agents are being used where data is actually being shared across multiple employees. So privacy and data leakage and risk across the enterprise, where you're not doing strong enforcement of controlling of who has access to what legal contracts, has become a burden and an issue. And so it's requiring for overlay departments to try to manage and control that. So that's one of the common problems that we're seeing today within that market. And then, of course, the other aspect is where you're repeating time-sensitive tasks that are very tedious. You're having to do the same reviews across multiple documents, extractions and summarizations, and especially around legal research, which takes a lot of your time. It's typically sometimes as much as 4 to 5 days, where you're doing through a massive repository of legal documents and trying to search and curate what you're looking for. And then the most important aspect is the growth of business and the scalability of this, where you have limited resources today due to restrictions in terms of internal funding, and yet your enterprise is trying to grow and extract more from everyday task, but it's becoming almost unscalable to be able to manage that. Next slide, please. So really, in this age, in this market, as you're reviewing and looking at the market where a lot of different third parties are offering agents to be able to accomplish that, really the most important aspect behind this is, are agents able to accomplish all the 4 major items that we addressed before? Are they addressing compliance? Are they addressing security issues, data availability? But more importantly, having a governance structure in place that manages and stipulates how you're able to set up different roles, who has access to which information, then most importantly, how do you pass that information in a secure fashion off to the next person involved in the review process? So what do you do beyond RPA? And then more importantly, across traditional AI, and this is where Agent Space, as we start delving into it, we're adding a lot more security and compliance around this at the enterprise level, where you as an enterprise customer control and maintain the governance across all the agentic data that's being created as employees are using the tools. And then most importantly, who has access to which data. And that's also very critical across that. Next. So what we're seeing today is a lot of cutting edge technologies that have been integrated into one component. You'll see that in the market, as you've done your research, you'll find that there's some LLM models provided third-party competitors or other parties are providing very specific large language models or agents and Gen AI capabilities. What we've done is we've aggregated the best of breed into agent space and incorporated all that technology, also bound and grounded directly to Google search technology. And then, of course, on the backside, a connection framework connecting to third-party tools of different third parties residing either on-premise or other cloud infrastructure. So in a nutshell, Agent Space is truly multi-cloud from that aspect, to allowing you to do an aggregation of your IT investments within legal department and allowing you to have one single source across all your enterprise data already available through the Gemini 2.5 models, the large language models that we just released, which are considered the most powerful in the market at this point in time. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is to accomplish essentially simplification of use for your employees. So they don't need to be excuse me, experts within data scientists. They don't have to have huge data scientist experience behind that, but really being able to make efficient use of their everyday work without having to know that they're using a very powerful tools on the back end to summarize and to aggregate and correlate all the data that you're looking for in a very productive and efficient time fashion as well. So at the end of the day, what we want accomplishing for our employees is the ability to enhance the capabilities of an employee in terms of time and operations. So it becomes a lot more simplified. It's not about increasing productivity or efficiency gains. It's helping the employee to accomplish essentially a lot more effectively all the information in a more efficient manner. And agents are about unlocking the capability for scaling up the business from that perspective. Next. So one of the strengths with Agent Space is the capability of supporting multimodal capabilities. Multimodal means whether it's video, audio, different sources of documents, whether it's all in 100% in SharePoint and Microsoft, whether it's PDFs, Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, or in SharePoint, having all that is completely searchable, and being able to support a tool like Agent Space that supports essentially multimodal search, whether it's in videos or audios or documents, and also generating output that is also multimodal. So generating content and also incorporating and creating audio associated to that, or multiple types of content associated as part of the actions for that. So having a tool that gives the employees the simplicity for inputting and output across different multimodal capabilities was built and baked right into the product out of the box. What is important for an investment with Agent Space is having a AI platform that supports all third-party agents, whether you're talking about third-party vendors or whether you're talking about products and agents that are created within Microsoft or AWS or any third parties. Having a tool that allows you to govern all those agents and setting permissible roles of who can execute what is one of the things that we're seeing that customers are asking. So we've included that as part of Agent Space. So it now allows you to support a governance model and allowing you to support which employees can execute which agents, whether they're ours or any other third party, for managing all that. And then most importantly is the knowledge frontier. It's knowing that as you're searching and indexing and querying against all the data, all employees can find and access all the information at their fingertips without having to spend endless hours of searching and trying to find the different sources of where the data is coming from. Next, please. So one of the key things that we talk about taking agents to production, it is pretty hard. And so one of the things that we've done is onboarding and enablement for Agent Space for our customers. We make it as simplified as possible. And we're talking about days instead of weeks or months for enablement. One of the key things that we do is to leverage your security identity models. You can configure Agent Space against that so that you don't have to have duplicity of roles and permissions. All those you've already probably defined today. And so this maps directly into your IT investment security infrastructure so that both security and access to the data within the Agent Space platform, or when your employees are connecting directly to those data sources, is the exact same data they have access to, no more nor less. And so for us, it's having a connection framework that supports ACL access control list. And so that is one of the key things that we've made major investments within agent space, is supporting ACL access to all the connections to all your third-party and knowledge enterprise systems. In addition to that, it's having an administrative console that supports all the governance and management of all those agents, as I talked about before, whether it's third parties, internal development, or within Google's, where we've created tools that allow you to create those agents, supporting the standard protocols like A2A and MCP, which are the standard enterprise industry standards for protocols for agents. We support all those, and again, making sure that agent space is not just for Google, but it's all for all cloud and agentic frameworks that are out in the market. So you can bring in those agents, and then we give you a governance and management environment that allows you to manage those. And then most importantly, it's also creating an agentic framework where a wizard can allow employees to create agents without having to the employee be any expert around AI, all simply knowing this is what they do on a daily basis. This is what they query and curate for all the complex tasks. You can use a step-by-step agent that can create those steps and automate it for you. You can schedule and execute those at a point of time when they want to automate the execution against those agents within the work environment. And then, of course, the same employees can share those agents with other coworkers and agentically context data sensitive to the access to the other employees as well. And the most important part is cost management and efficiency. Today, we're all familiar with using agents on the consumer side, where you have to deal with tokens, you have to deal with the complexity of what's being accomplished. We eliminated that so that as enterprise customers, your primary use, you can use it as much as you want, and you still pay a same fee as a user-based license for execution across agent space as an employee. No additional costs associated to that. Next step, please. So one of the key things that we're focusing on is having a solution platform for your enterprise that supports the capability of managing all the investment of agents that you've procured, supporting Vertex AI for our development platform for creating new agents and creating solutions, like application integration that allows you to support very complex workflow orchestration and have that published as an agent within agent space, research and idea models that are included out of the box. And of course, all this is running within our AI hypercomputer infrastructure that Google has invested within our Google Cloud infrastructure. So there's no shortage of performance or shortage of scalability for executing agent space within your environments. Next slide, please. So today, building agents, as I mentioned before, have a complete range of managing your agents within agent space, whether you're creating internal agents within agent space itself through the wizard that I mentioned, or whether you're using conversational agents using the ADK, which is our agent development Vertex AI tool that allows you to do low coding for creating agents against an existing garden of models. The Vertex Agent Builder, which is our agent engine infrastructure that is included also as part of agent space, where you can do a little bit more coding, or you do it yourself where you're using the ADK and creating your own agents with very low coding platforms as well. So, and also using application integration or any other third parties to allow you to do that. So we give you a huge range of managing how you want to incorporate third parties or building your own agents through a huge range of tool sets that are available for this. Next slide. So as one of the things that we did talk about is the importance around data privacy. It's what is very important for us for supporting US customers is making sure that for legal requirement purposes, when you're installing and executing agent space within your own private network zone, you own all the models that are associated to that, including the agentic data that's being created to optimizing those models. Not Google, but you as a customer own all that data. You manage and maintain that. We guard against insider access to that data as well. So as an administrator, you can manage who has access to your optimized models, who has access to all the indexing and caching, and the optimizations that the data is being used for the models to tune it and ground it directly to your own data. Google does not have access to any of that data. You manage and administer that. And even if we did, you gave us permission to access it. We do not sell any third party or customer data at all. So that is completely around your purview for that. The data is not to be used to train any Google models. You are training your own models, and those are optimized to and grounded to your own data. Outside of that context, nothing is ever used for that. Google does not use any of your data for advertising, and your data is not used to train any models for any other customer. Everything, as I mentioned from the beginning, you own and manage all the data. The models that are trained and optimized are yours to keep. We have nothing as Google to do with those for you. Okay, next slide, please. So typical cases that we see within legal is document analysis and summarization. So that's the very easy thing, whether you're looking at sales contracts, legal reviewing, depositions, and you're trying to, instead of reading through all the content, you want to get an analysis and the preview of ownership or legality associated across disputes within the contracts. Or contract obligations, we can do the document analysis summarizations for you. We also support capabilities of legal research, case preparations, reviewing all the content and creating summarizations using the research agent, contract management for managing T's and C's and doing amendments against that. And then, of course, more importantly, regulatory compliance. And we'll cover some of the use cases associated to that. And then, of course, some of the typical agents that we see that are being created, next slide, please, around agent space in this industry. We see agents that are being created around automated legal research agents. So deep research is one of those agents, which we do include out of the box for you as an enterprise customer. Contract review agents as well, due diligence agents, client reporting, and then knowledge management agents are what we're seeing that are being consumed within this market. Next slide. So now let's go and go into agent space itself. And before we go, let me give you a quick summarization across different areas. So as a enterprise customer for agent space, obviously there are other areas you can use agent space as well, where we're seeing within this market segment for our customers. They're also using it within sales to help find earnings for customers, using it in marketing for targeting specific customers for services that you might provide that they're not subscribing to. So it's very good for enabling that. In addition to software for IT, where you have customers that are creating issues or concerns and having a system that tracks and manages that. We also have customers who are using that to help you to aggregate and provide solutions against that. Of course, HR issues, all around HR, and of course, legal is what we're seeing and everything we're covering in this use case as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and next slide, please. So what that allows you to do now, let's go ahead and go directly into agent space itself. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So as an employee within this legal department and this customer that I've created a sandbox. And one of the key things that we've done is that the UI allows you to be able to configure it to support your branding. That's step number one. We designed the interface to be very similar to Google search, but with a lot more advanced capabilities. You're going to notice that by default, the internet search capabilities is disabled. So as an employee, you only have access to your internal sources and internal enterprise data. So in this sandbox demonstration, the data sources that Agent Space is running against is SharePoint, Microsoft SharePoint, where I have all my legal documents that are stored, services and announcements for my enterprise database. In this case, it's pointing to my Google Calendar, but it can be any calendar that you have configured, whether it's Microsoft's. In addition to that, I'm pointing to Google Drive, so the shared drive for documents that I have stored there. You'll notice I'm also connecting to a third-party open ticketing system that's called Jira. And then, of course, my mail is also included as part of the search. There is a third-party platform that we have within Google called AppSheets, which allows you to create mobile applications for your customers for different services and products. or for registering different situations. Those applications, so mobile apps, have databases. Those are also included as part of Agent Space's search capabilities. And of course, all my customer contact information, Microsoft's OneDrive. You notice I'm also connecting to a third-party Salesforce sales tool, so that is also included as part of my source. And then, of course, typically most customers use chat for their internal communications, so Slack is included as part of that search as well. If you'll note, as an employee, you also have access to which sources. If you want to scope what you're searching for, you can actually narrow the data sources specifically to the certain context of your doing. Second, you're going to notice that I can generate context conversations. These are long tail conversations. So as an employee, I can switch context throughout the week. This can actually go back to months. So if you're doing research against certain cases, you can retain those contexts of those cases, and you can keep switching contexts. And when I go back to those contexts, it's going to remember the aggregation and summarization of that specific conversation, and you can continue at that point. So very powerful in terms of doing long tail conversations that can last months. So that's very important where you're doing research against specific cases as well, or certain customers or situations. And then, as I mentioned before, capabilities of managing agents. So this is where I'm a enterprise customer plus an employee, and I want to create my own agent, right? So in this scenario, I can create an agent. I can give it a name. Let's call it a client review agent. And then at the bottom, I can give it what my goals are. And as part of the goals, I'm explaining what I want to be able to do. And then I can, from there, I can now generate instructions and questions and queries I wanted to execute, which allows me to be able to do multiple steps as part of this agent and carry data. The first could be, hey, for customer X, review all the legal contracts that are under their purview, give me a summarization. And then the next question could be simply across this specific context, generate those that are dealing with IP ownerships and et cetera, et cetera. So you can further narrow down the scope. And then at the bottom, you can also scope out. So you can narrow down the data sources and tools, or you can utilize, if you are supporting a third-party agent where it can take this as input, or our own agents where you want another agent to execute what you've summarized and to do a summarization or create contracts against that. You can do that as well, so you can wire in other agents or those that are creating the wizard, or third parties, so you can wire chain different agents together. So very powerful. And then you can schedule execution against this as well from that context. And then the other thing is prompting assistance. So there are other prompts that we include out of the box, whether it's translation text, explaining technical documents, structuring content. So if you generated content and you want to structure in a certain format, you can use the wizard to prompt to change the summarization against that, generating marketing email, setting reminders, creating JIRA tickets, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of prompts that we include out of the box to simplify your work. And then last but not least is Notebook LM. So I would categorize Notebook LM as kind of like your own mini data lake that's dedicated to you. So you can upload documents and videos and audios and et cetera into it, and it'll automatically index those so they're searchable and queryable directly within your whole enterprise data as well. And then, as I mentioned too as well, we have deep research and idea generation included as part of this. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in. So what I want to be able to do first is I want to load a legal document. And as part of that document, I want to be able to do a quick review. So in this situation, I am essentially reviewing legal contracts. And so what I want to be able to do as part of this, I want to do a summarization of this specific document. So I'm actually, in this situation, it's not in my repository. I just received it, and I want to do a summarization against this document, right? So now you can see the summarization against this. It's telling me this document is a master service agreement between Eurovibe and a third-party customer called Unicorn Corporation, which is a New York corporation. Purpose is essentially giving a summarization. It's a contract agreement. and then it's telling you what the agreement is, the deliverables, the services that are being provided, and the statement of work that's associated. It's also giving a summarization of fees, invoicing, and late payment charges, so it's terms and conditions. And then most importantly, it's giving a summarization of intellectual property rights, who owns what are the conditions and retentions, and then of course confidentiality, warranties and liability, terms and conditions, miscellaneous, and et cetera, et cetera. So I can even further drill down and say, hey, what is my company's liability limit against this contract, right? So it's actually summarized that, and then boom, it's giving me essentially what the liability is. More importantly, because my company is based in California and they're based in New York, really what I really want to find out is who actually holds the intellectual property rights. And then most importantly, it's against intellectual property rights, because each state is there a conflict between the two states' laws and applied, and how is that impactful against us? And then boom, it's able to tell me essentially that the state of California construes in accordance with laws without conflict to any other laws associated, right? So, and then can there be an agreement that can be terminated by the customer? So really we're coming back and stipulating if the customer can terminate this and what are the conditions associated to that termination, right? And so, yes, of course, and these are the stipulations against termination contracts that they have a right to, and then the conditions associated to that. You can ask other questions as well. So are there auto renewals? And if so, how can we prevent the auto renewals, or how can we allow that auto renewals occur against that? And so there's a lot of different, oops, sorry, let me go ahead and re-add that. And then boom. So now it's telling me what the auto renewal agreement is, and then the prevention of the auto renewal, right? And what are the conditions associated? And then of course, further up questions, how long is the initial agreement? How long is the notice period for termination? How long is the confidentiality associated to this? All very important as well. Now, in addition to that, let's say that I'm doing an amendment against this, right? So let's go ahead and grab an amendment contract and the original contract. And then now I want to do a comparison between the two. And so what I'm saying is, give me a draft amendment, a summarization against this, and then will there be changes against the original master service agreement, right? So now it's doing a comparison across two documents, and it's giving me essentially the differences and variances. What are the terms? What are the conditions of termination? What is the original? What is the amendment, and what is the impact? That's very important, right? So that's one of the key things that we're allowing you to do, is determining the impact against the conflicts between the original and the amendment associated. What is the financial penalty? And then what is the end result of it? And then the governing laws in association with each of the states. What are the incorporations? So most importantly is the considerations, giving me back and telling me the amendment also includes a no other amendments clause, stating that the exception, except for expressly modified to this amendment, all the terms and conditions of the agreement to remain in full force. So anything that is not being covered will be covered by the amendment, but all the originals agreements are in force. And so last and not least is, what is the effective date? Is there an effective date against the amendment, right? So it's able to review and give you summarization against that information as well. So you can see we've actually gone through and done very complex scenarios where we've updated, asked for summarizations. Now we're doing a comparison against multiple contracts and amendments. And then more importantly, it's helping me to identify any issues associated to all the legal review of those contracts. Now, let me go ahead and step another situation. And what I'm going to do in this situation, I'm going to go and step over where I'm actually doing a legal review case. And then I want to do a summarization of this document, right? So I'm looking at a specific case that is currently pending. And what you'll notice in this other scenario, now what I'm trying to do is to review essentially IP and legal right issues, right? So we see that happening in the market today. So this document is an intellectual property license agreement between Beaming White and Santa Pinto Corporation, right? And the agreement was in February 2011. purposes, key terms and obligations, the termination of the contract, liability and indemnification, and then the governing law. So it's saying that this is within the state of Texas. So what is the license type granted to Santa Pinto? What is the license exclusivity? And what is the licensee's effective date? So you can follow up with all those questions and try to review essentially the steps associated to that. Very powerful, so you can get summarizations against that. The next step is, what is Santa Pinto's obligations as part of the agreement, right? Are there any stipulated obligations that are included in the IP rights documents? And then, boom, there you go. So it's giving you that there are several key considerations that apply and depending on different circumstances, right? And then most importantly, what are the IP rights does Santa Pinto have in the actual contracts? And then most importantly, also, what is Beaming White's retention against contracts as well? So it's telling you here that they do not have any ownership proprietary of intellectual rights. And as we're seeing, all that is applying directly to Beaming White associated to this, right? And then you can get further on, what are the licensing type being granted? What is the license exclusivity? What is Beaming White's liability limits, and et cetera? And then can there be, most importantly, the last most important, can Santa Pinto modify the IP rights in the association outside of the scope of the contracts that are being defined, right? Because typically that's a typical scenario, and says no. The Santa Pinto Corporation cannot modify Beaming White's intellectual property, and the agreement, it's specifically stated under ownership, right, that no modifications can be allowed. And that's very important because we see that more in terms of legal review and contract on follow-ups where there's a dispute associated against that, right? So as you can see, within agent space, both the capabilities of being able to do very complex summarizations, doing comparisons against different versions of documents, and then most importantly, ascertaining essentially next steps and where conflicts that are associated and identified within the actual contracts, and then where identifications are being resolved and what steps need to be happen. Those recommendations are included as part of agent space and its capabilities in the legal review process. It's very important. That covers a good portion of the demonstration. Let's go ahead and switch back to the slide deck, please.
Is this the right slide?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So as you can see, agent space is first and foremost the capability of doing all your agentic capabilities for an employee, being able to do summarizations, being able to do actions across not only your sources, but also any other ad hoc documents you might have. And of course, being able to incorporate third party or any agents where you want to manage the governance and the execution of those agents. It provides a platform for your enterprise employees to be able to execute and simplify a lot of their work. Next slide. When considering Google Cloud, one of the most important things that we talked about multiple times throughout this presentation is your data security and privacy. And so for, to readdress the issues that we talked about, privacy for all the data that's being generated in your enterprise data, you as a customer own all those rights. There's no exception to that. Security and compliance certifications are included out of the box. The capabilities where data is being encrypted on the fly for internal consumption, data that's being accessed, and that where agent space is creating indexing databases against that data. All that is also encrypted and securely managed, so that if for some reason some other employee gets access to the admin rights, all that data is still blocked and not accessible if they don't have permissions. Capability supporting from the inception all the way down to the data, role-based access and control to who and what can see which fields in which databases or data repositories or data lakes is very important. We support that all the way through from top to bottom. And of course, data residency and sovereignty. So if as a legal entity, you're dealing with third-party countries, whether it's in Europe, making sure the data that you're indexing resides within that country and is not being placed in another country. So we support those capabilities as well. And of course, having admin tools that supports the data governance and privacy across all. And then more importantly, being responsible across AI. Google is very respectful in terms of the agentic capabilities and grounding the data specifically so that what you're executing is all based against the information that you're providing. Next step. So at the end of the day, only Google Agent Space gives you the capabilities of moving your business forward at a very effective manner in a very secure and privacy and governance manner. It's a single experience across all your enterprise data in one platform using our agents or any other third-party agents that are registered, and you're governing those agents within the agent framework. Google's the leading provider for multimodal AI and advanced reasoning across our large language models. And again, more importantly, you have multiple ways of managing all your agents that you're creating within your enterprise. So having one centralized enterprise tool to help you manage and have a central governance model associated to that. And then, of course, on a month-by-month basis, pre-built connectors that support access control list and agent capabilities where you can have third-party tools that create agents and have those published, even if you're creating those yourself. And then most importantly, having a platform that is enterprise-grade in terms of security, privacy, compliance, and data residency controls right out of the box so that you can configure that at the admin level, and then you don't have to worry about breaking compliance and governance in any country entity you are executing your business. That is the end of our webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and provide any questions you might have. Thank you very much, and enjoy your week. Cheers.